guys, so welcome back to Mental Health Mondays, and today we have the third video in the Smashing the Stigma series. Today I'm going to be discussing this whole perception that mental health people are attention seekers. So there was an interesting comment from one of you guys on this when I asked you initially, and that said that people nowadays are telling people to open up about their mental health experiences, but then when you do, you get labelled an attention seeker or a liar, and this stigma leads to people kind of hiding away and not wanting to get help for their illness. It's kind of like you can't really win. There's also the issue that when people find out, they start to treat you differently. People are gonna kind of see you as like a lesser person, when in fact, in my opinion, it is the opposite, and you're, you know, a greater person through the struggles that you've been through. Obviously, there are different severities, so you can be severely depressed, moderately depressed, mildly depressed, for example. There's not kind of one explanation fits all. People handle suffering in different ways. Some people might not be able to withstand what other people can. Two people with, say, OCD are not gonna behave exactly the same because, number one, they're obviously completely different people, and number two, the illness is not in black and white. It is so complex. So I think this is when people can start to judge and deem people attention seeking if, say, they've seen one person deal with depression differently to how this person is dealing with depression. But what people need to understand is that we all deal with things differently. Like with anything in life, it's not the same. Even physical illnesses, so say two people have the flu, yes, they're gonna have some of the same symptoms, if not all, but they're not going to behave in the same way. Some people can handle it and get on better with it, but other people are bedbound by it. And either scenario is absolutely fine when it comes to physical and mental illness. So a lot of the time, for example, people with depression may get told by friends, family members, people on the internet, what do you have to be depressed about? You're only 17. This phrase, however it is put, makes me very angry. I get told a lot of the time, you know, people are surprised that I was ill because how could I be ill when I'm so pretty and I come from such a good family? Mental illness does not distinguish. It doesn't choose by gender, by age, by sexuality, nothing. Two people in completely different countries who are completely different ages, from completely different families, can both suffer with the same condition. But that's not saying that they're going to suffer with it in the same way. Obviously, you're going to get your similarities. So people have said to me that my experience has been similar to theirs. I was told by my parents when I first kind of opened up to them and said, something's wrong with me, like this, I shouldn't be feeling like this, that it was hormones. People will tell you, you know, it's a passing teenage phase. And it is difficult because obviously mental health is such a huge kind of issue within teenagers, but then obviously teenagers are going through a lot of things anyway, so it can be hard to distinguish, but you know, there are obviously methods. There is the issue with people who do make up that they have a mental illness, and this does happen, and it is very common within teenagers. I've seen it happen. I've heard stories from my sister who tells me about how, you know, people her age, she's 15 by the way, think being mentally ill is trendy. Depression is not cool, pretending to have anxiety so you can get out of things is not cool. But the thing is with these people that make up that they are mentally ill is that there's obviously something wrong with them anyway, because they're having to change their whole entire persona and their self, and that is a problem within itself. I don't know why they'd want to do that. Well, I do know, because obviously they want attention. But if we talk about kind of mentally ill people in terms of how do I say this, opening up and discussing, say, their mental illness. Lola, shut up! She is barking right outside my window. People with mental illness being open, say telling their friends and family, maybe putting it on social media about mental illness. This is not attention seeking, you guys. A lot of the time people want to raise awareness, you know, they want to talk about mental illness normally to help smash the stigma. It becomes difficult when someone who is suffering posts something which could be seen as attention seeking. I understand both sides of this. If someone who is mentally ill says, you know, something descriptive about how they want to kill themselves. When you're ill, you do not realise that this is not the right thing to do. You're not in your right mind. You just want to know that people care. I mean, obviously when you're in that situation, number one, you might not actually consciously realise this, that it's, you know, a kind of cry for help. Or number two, you might actually just genuinely be telling people and warning them. But the likelihood is that there's still that tiny, tiny little bit of you inside you that is holding on to hope and hoping someone will say, no, you know, I love you so much, blah, 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 like, and try and stop you. Try your best to kind of look beyond what someone is saying if they post something like that. It is a cry for help. They are ill. Please, please try your best not to judge the person and to reach out and ask them if they need help, not to respond negatively, because that is just going to make things worse. The thing is, to a mentally ill mind, it's easier to post something like that than to admit you're struggling and you need help, because that is like the hardest thing to do. The final kind of topic I want to discuss within this is self-harm, because self-harm is seen as an attention-seeking act. I wanted to actually start off with a quote, because I don't know if you guys remember, but basically a while back I did an article in The Sun which was all about helping the stigma of mental health, and I told my story. The Mail Online picked that up and they kind of like regurgitated the story. And I, stupidly, no one warned me, read the comments on the Mail Online from some lovely, lovely people. This was one of the comments which I saved because I just thought it was like so ridiculous. Just wait until you hear this. My daughter was self-harming at 14 years old. It was a direct result of a very poor upbringing by my ex and idiotic attitudes of social services. The harming was a cry for attention, not one for help. By my ex ignoring my daughter and not giving her even some attention, it caused her to get some another way. Moral is, this can be avoided with some simple love and care. Literally every sentence, every word is wrong with that phrase. Okay. Let's just dissect this. It was a direct result of a very poor upbringing by my ex. So this woman, first of all, disregards that any of it was to do with her. It's her daughter. Surely her daughter that she gave birth to is her responsibility. Second of all people with a bad upbringing don't necessarily go on to self-harm. They don't even necessarily go on to, you know, behave destructively. The harming was a cry for attention, not one for help. I genuinely don't believe that someone would harm their body to that extent just for attention from their parents. And if they do, obviously that is an issue within itself, and this mum should acknowledge that. It caused her to get attention another way. It was probably bad attention, going by this comment. Anyone that does something like that is not gonna want a negative response. Moral is, this can be avoided with some simple love and care. I had a very good upbringing. I am and was very loved and very cared for, and look at me, I was self-harming. So I'm not sure love and care are gonna be enough. The thing is with self-harm that people need to realise, it's like one of the most secretive acts ever. I never once kind of paraded it in front of people's faces. When you have self-harmed and you wake up the next morning, you feel ashamed. You're like, what have I done? I'm gonna have to hide this from my parents. I managed to hide it from them for years. Like, they literally had no idea. If self-harm was attention seeking, surely I would have made it obvious to them, you know, I would have made sure they saw it. Throughout my whole self-harming, when I was younger, like only my two best friends knew because they noticed. I really don't understand why it's seen as such an attention-seeking thing. Even if someone posts a picture that happens to have their cuts in it, it's a part of them, it's something they're going through. It's just seen like ludicrous if you spot someone's cuts in like a picture. So that is all for today's topic. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know if you're liking these videos and finding them helpful, and I will see you soon. Bye!